We need to get you to the basement and wait for the cops.
Is there anything in my way?
Wait, Sophie, wait!
You're watching Rogers TV, Grey County.
Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 special edition Rogers TV program. My name is Carol Merton, and today I'm delighted to welcome as a guest John McLachlan from Habitat for Humanity. And John has advised me that his official title has now changed, and he's Resource Manager for Habitat for Humanity. And this is in Grey Bruce, right, John? This is the Grey Bruce region that you are Resource Manager?
Work out of Owen Sound and cover the entire area of Grey and Bruce.
Thank you for being here today. Grey and Bruce is one of a number of Habitat for Humanity groups, correct, that are spread. Can you tell me a little bit about the Grey Bruce Habitat for Humanity and, more importantly, how you've been managing through the COVID-19 and, of course, the Omicron wave?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm proud to say that Habitat for Humanity Grey Bruce is the oldest existing Habitat affiliate in Canada. So it started, Habitat came to Canada in 1985, and the first affiliate opened in Winkler, Manitoba in 1987, and we opened just shortly after that. Now, Winkler, Manitoba has now been merged into all of Manitoba, so we are the oldest existing habitat in Canada. We're proud to say that.
Absolutely.
So we've been going since 1987, and it's been a long history with lots of support from the area. Back in 1987, of course, we maybe built one house every 2 or 3 years, and because of financing and planning and all that kind of stuff, where now we're up to building multi-units every year. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's been a big growth, and we're pretty proud of it.
Yeah. So when you say multi-units, you're not referring to single dwelling units, or you're just saying many, many units that you build?
I'm saying many, many units, but some of them have been single units, some of them have been semi-detached over the years. What we try to do is we try to maximize the number of houses we put on one lot. So it's called high density housing, and that's what we're interested in doing. The more families we can help, the happier we are.
So take me through the process of how you connect with families, how the funding works, where do you get the people to build the houses? If somebody has never been exposed to Habitat for Humanity before, maybe just take us through a little bit about that, how it rolls.
Now, I'm going to talk pre-pandemic, and then I'll upgrade it to what is happening in the pandemic, because it's a completely different world. So what we would normally do is, if we're going to be building a house, we would start by advertising in the region where it is, try to get people to apply for a house. So it's an application process. They go onto our website, habitatgraybruce.ca, and they click on a little thing called an expression of interest. And they say, I am interested in being a homeowner. They then ask a whole series of questions, which includes what's your income, what's your family structure, where are you living now, what's happening now. Once that's done, we weed through those. Certain incomes we don't count. In most cases, we do not count Ontario Works. We do count disability pensions. We do count money being earned at a job and things like this. So typically, our best client is the family that has two people working, both making maybe less, maybe around minimum wage or a little bit more. What I would call the working poor that just couldn't afford to buy a house, even though they're working hard and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So once they've applied, we go through it and we narrow it down to sort of a group of, I don't know, a dozen people. And we do home visits. We go and visit their house and see what the situation they're living in. And we do credit checks, we do police checks, we do all these kind of checks to go through it. Then we try to narrow it down to the most needy. And once we've done that, we do a summary for our board of directors, a blind summary. In other words, no names to it, nothing to recognize the people. And they all go to our board of directors. And our board of directors selects the family based upon that criteria. And we say, this is who it is. So once they have said, this is the family we want to choose, they let us know, and we get in touch with them. It's like they won the lottery, I think, sometimes. So we get in touch with them and we meet with them to discuss their situation. Are they still interested? And we point out to them what's expected of them. And they're expected to put in 500 hours of sweat equity for a family with 2 parents, 350 hours for a single parent. And
tell us what sweat equity means.
Okay, what sweat equity is, we expect them to work on their house because we feel if they work on their house, there's going to be much more pride of ownership. They'll also know what's behind the walls. They'll understand how everything was put together. They'll know more about their house than most people know about their houses. So that's some kind of a bragging point for them, I think, So, so once they've agreed to the sweat equity and that they're going to do that, then we go through their needs of what the family needs. So in case there's a disabled child or a disabled individual in the house, what do we have to do when we design the house? So we kind of custom build the house for their needs. Once that's done, we get the plans all approved, we get all the permits in place, and we start building the house. And they're expected, like I say, they're expected to come out and help build the house. In fact, if they don't get their sweat equity in, they do not get the key.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. We have withheld keys before. And it's funny to see as they get closer to the date of closing, how they start to panic and wanting to volunteer, yet there's not much work for them to do because the house is almost finished, I think. So, so we try to warn them about it. We try to tell them about it, but sometimes people we have a credibility gap, I guess. So, but no, but most people get it and most people work at it. Some people actually exceed their hours. Now this year, interestingly enough, we had one family member who put his hours in very quickly and showed us that he was a keen worker, and he's now a contract employee. So we've actually hired him. So
that's a success story, actually.
That's right. That's right. So we've got a few of those, and I'll talk about those as we go along. Yeah. So now families have agreed to put in their sweat equity. They've proven their incomes, and we've approved them for be the homeowner. So then, like I say, they work at the houses, but then we also make them go through some courses. Again, something most people don't do. And those courses include how does Habitat work? What do we do? We also talk about a budgeting program. We talk about how to be a good neighbor. Don't let your dog run over and do his business on the neighbor's lawn. We talk about wills and estate planning. We talk about life insurance. We talk about all the things that a homeowner should know. Then the last course we do is a walk through the house with a book that shows them where every flick and switch is. If your house starts to flood, here's where you go, turn it off here. And we actually take pictures and make a book of their own house. So it isn't, you get something that looks like this, we say, this is what it is. So
wow, you actually are doing life skills training around homes. That's remarkable.
Yeah, but it's important to remember that many of our clients have come from a system of rental. They've never actually been a homeowner, have no guidance to be a homeowner. So what we're trying to do is help them succeed, because we want them to succeed. We don't want them to fail. We want them to succeed. So we put this program on.
Yeah. So you do a lot of upfront work to even get to the point to consider the applicant and then to move through the permits and that part. How do these homes get paid for, and how does Habitat for Humanity, I mean, you have workers, I mean, I assume they get paid?
Well, this is the beauty of Habitat. Our workers get paid by the operation of a restore. The restores, we have 3 restores, one in Owen Sound, one in Hanover, and one in Port Elgin. And the operation of these restores pay all our administrative costs, so that if you donate money to our build, not one penny goes to pay my salary, for example, not one penny. So administrative costs are all covered by the operation of the restores. And I'll get to the impact of COVID when I start talking about the restores for sure. So then once the houses, again, there's 2 different scenarios. One scenario is we'll talk about off reserve. So if we're not talking about Indigenous housing, we're talking about a house that we build in 2020, for example, in Owen Sound. Yeah. So we built the houses, the families were selected, the families worked on the houses, they had their sweat equity in, they moved into the houses. Just before they moved in, we got the houses appraised by 2 real estate agents. And if they're within 5%, that becomes the price that the family pays. So they pay fair market value. See, a lot of people think Habitat builds their houses and gives them away. Nothing could be farther from the truth. These families pay fair market value for those houses. Now, they do that with a no down payment, no interest mortgage that is spread out over 20 years. At the end of 20 years, they have to pay whatever balance is owing.
Yeah.
So
definitely, just like others, they have a mortgage that is, but by putting in the sweat equity, that is the one of the offsets to having to put a down payment down. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. One could think of it that way, but
okay.
Yeah. But that money that they're paying on a monthly basis goes into a pot that we call the Fund for Humanity, and that's used to build more houses.
Wow.
So we have enough mortgage payments coming in right now to build probably 1 or 2 houses. That's why we're able to move into building multi-units. So now let's talk about on Indigenous land. Yeah. It's a little bit different. We've been building for the last couple of years on Indigenous land because one of the beauties that they have is they have lots of land. And so what we do is, because we can't do our normal model on Indigenous land because we can never own the house. So obviously in a non-Indigenous situation, if someone doesn't pay their mortgage, we'll take it back. We don't want that to happen, but that is something that can happen. But on Indigenous land, we can't take it back because we can never own it. So what we do is we contract with the abandoned council to build the houses, and we give them a quoted rate up front. This is what we're going to build the houses for, and we're the builder. That's all we are. And we build the houses, and they pay for the houses. And when we walk away at the end of the build, the houses are paid for. Yeah. And so that helps our cash flow because we're not hanging on for 20 years to get our money. So it's quite helpful. But it also has other problems, of course, because you have to make sure that your estimate is bang on. So, but what happens then? The First Nations goes out and gets financing. In a couple of years, they got financing from CMHC. They've got financing from Department of Indian Affairs in the past. And so they've actually built those houses for a very good price, and they've not tied up any of their own capital. So
that's a win-win for sure.
Absolutely. So, and to date, we've built 21 houses on First Nations land since 2017. And we don't know for sure, but we think that's a leader in Canada.
Wow, remarkable.
Yeah.
So we're in COVID. What's different about the process?
Well, I know you've never heard anybody say this, but COVID has changed everything. It's absolutely insane.
Well, the
First
other
off,
phrase is you pivoted.
one of the things that Habitat Grey Bruce prides itself on is we're innovative, we're positive thinkers, and we attack this stuff we're, with innovation. Like, I can't believe the things we've done. But when government shuts down retail outlets, they shut down the restore.
Right.
When they shut down the restore, they shut down our number one source of revenue. We can't pay our administrative costs because the restore shut down. So as a result, we ended up laying off some employees during the shutdown, which we don't like to do, but you don't have a choice, you know. Fortunately, they were able to get funding through other government sources, so you know, nobody went broke or anything like that. So it worked out fairly well. I will say that the government came up with some plans that helped out. We also, through COVID, we got some funding to help us. In 2020, we ran into a problem because we had already quoted the band. We started building, and then COVID hit. And when it hit, the band shut down. No volunteers. Well, as you know, Carol, our houses are built by volunteers. So now we're stuck with a situation where we can't build our houses because we didn't have any volunteers. So we had to go out and hire people from within the community to build the houses. And fortunately, we were able to get some funding for that, and for 2020. And in 2021, we were able to plan for it. So we learned a lot of lessons through 2020 that we were able to apply in 2021. So we shut down the restores, and so that hurt us. But again, we were able to get some funding through some of the government plans that enabled us to keep our head above water. But not being, like I say, we learned lessons in 2020. So when 2021 came along, crazy as we are, we decided to build 4 houses up at Nayashiningming, but we also signed a contract with Saugeen First Nations to build 4 houses there.
Oh my goodness. So
now we're committing to, in a COVID year, with limited volunteers, limited resources, that we're going to build 8 houses. Probably the most we've done in 1 year, I think. But we kind of did it. The 4 houses at Saugeen are finished. The 4 houses at Cape are not quite finished. They'll probably be finished sometime in February, but they're very close. But it is because of COVID that they're not finished, because not only did COVID affect our lack of volunteers, but it affected our whole supply chain, and whether we could get lumber, whether we could get drywall. So again, we learned that lesson in 2020. So in 2021, we looked and we knew that appliances would be hard to come by. So we ordered them in February, and we got the last shipment in, I think it was October.
Wow.
So they did take that long, but we have a storage facility, so we were storing them there. Same thing with rigid foam. That was hard to come by, so we ordered that early, and we just stored it. We had our warehouse was completely full, I'll tell you. So so it presented some challenges, but because of 2020, we learned what the challenges were going to be. So we were able to address them. Generally speaking.
And fairly quickly, when you think about it. I mean, you didn't have much time to change how you were going to deliver. Amazing. The supplies and you mentioned you do costing for houses on reserve land. Did that cause a challenge when you had costed for these, but then the supplies were all experiencing the increase costing?
That would probably be a major understatement. We did run into that. We don't know how the numbers are going to work out this year yet. The bills are still coming in, but I think we're going to be pretty much okay. We saw a lot of this coming, so we were able to build in some contingencies. We were able to build some provisions into the contract in case this happened. This is what you'll do, and all this kind of stuff. So I think we learned our lessons in 2020, and it worked out fairly well in 2021.
Excellent.
So,
So you did 8 houses in a COVID year?
yes,
Wow.
that's what I say too.
Yeah.
And we did the we did the 8 houses. Nash and Ningming didn't open up for volunteers until August the 3rd. And so from August the 3rd till December, we had 19 team builds, which is pretty good. Once they opened up, now we limited them to about 10 people per house, and because we wanted social distancing, especially when they were working outside, it was okay. But once we got inside, we had to really limit the number of people that could be inside. But like I say, Nash Ningming only opened up to volunteers on August the 3rd. So we worked away at that. We had a couple of teams come up from Toronto and work at it. But we had a lot of teams that wouldn't come because of COVID, and we respect that. No question about it. Now, Saugeen, which we started first, had an outbreak and declared a state of emergency and prohibited any volunteers from outside the community from being there. So that meant we had to go and hire more people. So we hired people from the community, which is great, and they're great workers, and so they're on a contract type thing, and so that's good. That's working out fairly well.
Yeah. So obviously lots of lessons, but you've also changed the model where you had to contract people as opposed to volunteers. Will you continue to do that kind of mixed model in the future, or is your hope after COVID, and we are hoping COVID will eventually end, that you'll go back to just primarily volunteers?
We will always be primarily volunteers in my mind. But there will be some contractors, there will be some an increase in employees, because one of the things that we have found in the past is if we have a large group, we have to supervise them for safety reasons and for quality reasons. Okay. One of the things we pride ourselves on is the quality of our homes.
Yeah.
So you can't do it all with one supervisor. So you have to have multi-levels of supervision that can help out. And so I expect we'll be using a volunteer, some paid people and some volunteers, especially if we're doing 8 houses. I mean, you just can't do it without, you can't ask our construction manager to be in 2 places at one time. So, but we are also looking at another program that I can't speak too much about yet because we haven't put it all together yet, but it's an apprenticeship program that will be training Indigenous youth to work on some of the houses. So
yeah, and that we're hearing about the need for skilled and trades people. So this would be a way for Habitat for Humanity to also provide an opportunity for people to learn trades and skills in a practical way.
That's right.
Which benefits everyone, really.
Yeah. Our long-range goal, our long-range concept is that we will create the first Habitat for Humanity chapter on First Nations land in Canada.
Wow. That would be amazing.
Now, that's our concept right now. So,
yeah.
So if that happens,
you have to come back. You have to come back.
Oh yeah, it'll be amazing. So we are working on it. As a matter of fact, as soon as I hang up here, I'm going to be working on a business plan, and I've got working on the funding and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be, if it comes together, it'll be amazing. So
I wanted to talk to you just in the last few minutes of the program. There's a huge housing need. There's a huge affordable housing need. And now you talked about those who are certainly in poverty or, at poverty as part of those who you consider for building houses, but we're hearing more about the missing middles, which means the middle income people now are in a challenge with being able to afford home ownership. I would anticipate more and more of a demand on Habitat for Humanity for services. How will your organization cope with that increased demand?
Yeah, we're working on that right now too. In the off-reserve situation, how do we get into multi-unit housing, building, and all this kind of stuff to help as many people as we can? And we've got a project we're looking at for maybe starting it in late 2022. That's off-reserve to look at that. As far as middle-income families go, our challenge isn't serving them. Our challenge is getting them to apply. Because they think, the problem we have is they think Habitat only builds houses and gives them away to poor people. They don't want to apply because they don't think they'd qualify, but they will. They could very easily qualify. And keeping in mind that the income level cutoff in Grey County, especially in Grey County, is up around $70,000 or $80,000.
Exactly.
So middle income person can apply absolutely. And don't be afraid to apply. The last 3 families in Owen Sound I've talked to, and they were all forced to apply by family members. They didn't think that they would qualify, and they did.
Wow.
You know? So
yeah, and that's an important message to send out there as we realize that more and more people are struggling and home ownership is becoming a very distant dream, that this is an opportunity to at least submit their name for consideration.
yes.
Because we want to keep people in our communities and close to family and have them stay with a roof over their heads that they can afford, for sure. What would you like to add in the last few minutes of the program?
Well, I guess as a resource manager, I'd be sinful if I didn't say something about through all this, we've had some funding demands that if somebody wanted to help us out, please go to our website, habitatgraybruce.ca, and make a donation. We would really appreciate it, and nothing is too small.
So in other words, help us put a roof over someone's head by donating to Habitat for Humanity, because it does take us all together to be able to help our community members. Restore, when are you opened yet? Are you?
Yeah, the restores are all open. Owen Sound, Port Elgin, and Hanover. But right now they're only open Tuesday to Saturday, 9 till 5.
Yeah. So still limited hours and limited numbers as well?
Well, right now we're limited to 50% capacity by regulation, but that's not a challenge. We've got fairly large stores, so it works out just fine. I believe that's going to change at the end of the month, so I think that we're A-okay.
Yeah. So I want to thank you very much for being on the program. You always have lots of information to share. And again, what's always impressed me about you and the organization Habitat for Humanity is how much you are community driven and you work in partnership with our community. And I do so appreciate you giving us the time to talk today. I really, truly want to talk to you again, but about other things, not COVID.
Well, let's do it again. I'm glad to do it. And thank you very much, Carol, for thinking of us.
My pleasure. And thank you to our viewing audience for joining us today. Please take care. Stay safe. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.